Open your eyes, open your heart, open your mind, open your spirit, and that you can fly, that there is nothing you cannot achieve. Yes? Do you believe this? By the power and the presence of the God doing business as each and every one of us, when we open to the possibilities of what can be, any dream, any vision, any idea, we can achieve it. The people standing up here as chaplains absolutely have proven it. Scared to death to even open up their mouth and say a prayer now serving in consciousness. Each one of you has a dream and a vision that you're living today, yes? And 10 years ago you didn't think it was possible. Because you opened your heart and you opened your mind to the possibility and allowed God to move through you, and as you, something happened. God happened at the point of you. Yes? This is the final week in a series. How many have been here for all the talks over the last 3 or 4 weeks? I hope you have enjoyed the series as much as I have. This is the kind of the icing on the cake of the series, but it's all about relationship. And I said from the beginning, and I will say it again, that you want to learn about yourself, go get in a relationship. Go spend time with the people in your life and take a look at the people that have shown up in your life that you have magnetized to you. They are there to teach you something. In week 1, we spent some time with the listeners and the lovers and the lighthouses. Cue the birds. Holding the energy, I want to be like them. And then week 2, we danced with mystics, and we danced with mavericks, and we realized that we're all misfits. And we held the energy, I want to be more like myself. I want to learn from these people, and I want to be more like me. And then we sparred last week. We put on the big boy pants and jumped into the deep end, and we sparred with nuisances and negativity and, cue the music, dum-da-dum-dum, narcissists, and strategized how to manage those waters, saying clearly, I don't want to be like them. Today, we're going to put a bow on all of it, recognizing our oneness with every single one of them and 1,000 more. Every one of them is a mirror, is a teacher, is a lesson, is an opportunity. Yes? Today, the talk is open-minded optimists and oneness. Take your hand and place it upon your heart and say, I am an open-minded optimist. And we are one. I am them. I am all of them. Because there is no us and them. You can stop now. This magnificent world is an incredible potpourri of all of these people and 1,000 more. Every one of them is there to point out to you where there's room to grow, where there's room to heal, where there's something that needs to be addressed within our system that is out of congruity with the spiritual truth of oneness. Life in its many forms, one life, not separate from us, but as expressions of us. So look around the room. Look around and behold the face of God. Every person in this room is an expression of you at one level or another, and you are an expression of them. We teach in the unity movement a spiritual singularity. There is only one power, there is only one presence, there's only one light, there's only one goodness, and it's expressed as all people and all creation. These are our basic unity principles, 1 and 2. We also teach that unity principle number 3, that our thoughts are creating our reality. So what you're thinking about that person over there, or that person over there, or that person right in front of you, what you're thinking about them is creating your reality, good, bad, or otherwise. That's usually where people get off the boat in unity, because we realize we are responsible for the life that we are leading. We are responsible for the relationships that we are having. And so many of us have given power away to somebody else. Chaplains are going to remind you that you are the light of the world, and it is your job to bring the light into the environment, into the relationship, into the experience. Nobody else's responsibility. That makes it really hard. Don't you miss the days where you could blame God or the devil for everything in your life? Or I could blame the devil doing business as that person who was driving me nuts right in front of me. So we teach this open-minded idea that we can be the open-minded optimists, holding a rainbow, holding a truth that transcends the human condition. And there are those that would say, oh, you're the feel-good church. Yeah, I get it. You go to the feel-good church. And I like to say, well, what church do you go to? What's the alternative to the feel-good church? It's the feel-bad church. And I think the world is tired of feeling bad. That we raise a consciousness, an idea, a truth, and a spirit that I can be the savior of the world, at least in my environment. But enough of us do that, enough of us hold that umbrella up with a positive attitude, even when it is dark, even when it is thundering and it is raining and it's hard to see, that I can actually change the world. Put your hand on your heart again. I can change the world. Together? Do you believe that? I've been a little hard-hitting over this series. Have you noticed that? And I got a little long-winded, too. I owe you a few minutes, but I was going to tell you you're going to get them back today, but probably not. I'm going to relax a little bit today, and I'm going to use readings that have changed my life, poetry that has changed my life, and some unexpected surprises. And last week, I went into the hymn book of country music, and you all seemed to like Mac Davis singing, "Lord, it's hard to be humble." I'm going to go into country music again today, and a song that impacted my life and changed the whole direction of my spirituality at one point. But today, I want the message to be one big giant hug, a hug of oneness, as we wrap our spiritual arms around each other and put a bow on the package of this series. We belong to each other. We are each other. There's only one of us in the room. And we're all just walking each other home. Ram Dass said it. Let's say it together. We're all just walking each other home. So look across the room again. The person over there, up in front. We're just walking each other home. And we're figuring out how to do it with the mavericks and the narcissists and the negativity and the lighthouses and the lovers and the listeners. And we're playing all those roles at any given moment. A lot of you were going around buzzing this week when I talked about mosquito people. And the reality is there are mosquito people in the room. I'm probably one of them for many people. But we're still walking each other home, and they are a necessary component to the environment that is the earth, that is the human race. And so let's begin to walk each other home and put a bow on the series with one of my favorite stories. There once was a monastery where all the monks had long lost the spark of their calling. The fire was out, and they ceased to really care about each other. They shared the same living space. They prayed together, they ate together, and they worked together, yet each monk lived in a very separate world. No one came to the monastery. No visitors, no my stuttering is coming up. No new devotees. I really practiced that line. The buildings were in complete disrepair, and they knew it was not long before there'd be no monastery at all. And so the abbot, he went to his friend, the rabbi, down the street to ask him for his support and his counsel, and he shared their plight with him. The rabbi said, "I'm sorry, my friend, but I have no advice. I have no answers." The abbot thanked him for his attention and time, and he began to leave. But just as he was heading out the door, the rabbi said, "I do have one thing to say, and that is, there is one among you who is the Christ. There is one among you who is the Christ." The abbot was astonished, but said his goodbye and parted. When he returned, all the brothers gathered around and asked the rabbi what he had said. He told them, and they all began to wonder aloud. There is one among us who is the Christ? They looked at each other with surprised faces. Surely not Brother William. He's so negative. And he always complains. It couldn't be Brother Mark. He's a maverick. He always finds a way to get out of doing his work. Surely not Brother David. He's such a nuisance who always is so gruff with everyone. Surely not Brother Al Mango. He's always complaining about his job. Maybe it's the abbot. Maybe it's the abbot. You know, he carries a bit of a light with him. Or maybe it's Brother Ignatius, who's always such a good listener. And then each monk began to think in turn, could it be me that the rabbi was talking about? Could it be me. And all the monks began to live in the energy of the rabbi's words, one among us is the Christ. Each of them began to treat each other differently, as if they were the Christ. They looked for ways to serve and were much more kind, compassionate, and patient. Each did his work, including Brother Al Mango, with a little more love, wondering if perhaps they were the one, maybe they were the one that the rabbi referred to. And they began to overlook little things that annoyed them. And they began to see the good that was in every single person. Well, life began to flow back into the dying community. A vitality and a joy was reborn. And the people of the nearby town, they learned that something had changed on the hill. And their curiosity came back and they began to visit again. Each was received with open arms, graciously welcomed and made to feel at home. Every effort was taken to care for their needs, as each monk accepted visitors and themselves as they were. Many came to be refreshed and renewed, and the brotherhood began to grow again as initiates came from far away to join the community. Soon the monastery was completely restored to its original splendor, all because one rabbi had the guts and the courage to know one among you is the Christ. One among us is the Christ. Anais Nin said something that impacted me the first time I heard it. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. Let's read that together. We don't see things as they are. We see them as we are. And let me make it more personal. We don't see people as they are. We see people as we are. So is it possible, when talking about the mosquitoes and the negativity and the misfits, that basically we're looking through the eyes of a personality that has missed the mark and missed seeing the Christ, missed seeing the light that is there that has been perhaps forgotten? Anybody ever forget the light of somebody in your life? Come on, get honest. Anybody forget the light as you look in the mirror of who you are? Let's get honest with ourselves. It happens. It's a great forgetting, but let there be a great remembering today. Let us be among those who seek good when nobody can find it. Let us be the ones that when it is darkest out, that have the eyes of the Christ, the ears of the Christ to see and to hear, and the heart of the Christ to know good, even when it is so dark that nobody else can see it. Let us be those that lift up the downtrodden, the mosquitoes. Let us be among those who reach into the heart of those heaped up spirits that have forgotten who they are and remind them who they are, when the rest of the world is walking away from them because they're annoying, or they're irritating, or they're angry, or they are afraid. Let us be the mirrors that inspire them to bring the best of ourselves and to know one among us is the Christ, and it's sitting in the seat that you're in today. The responsibility is not anybody else's, but the Christ is sitting in your seat, but the Christ is also sitting in the seat to your left and your right, in front of you and behind you. St. Patrick, the story and the myth of St. Patrick is that he just simply held with a small band of people, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ to the left, Christ to the right, Christ above me, Christ below me, Christ all around, and Christ inside. What would the world be like if the critical mass of us made a commitment to behold the face of God, or love, or life? I don't care what you call it the Christ, call it God, call it Joe, but it's good and it's holy. If we were able to see that everywhere we went, we were the vibrating center of God awareness and consciousness, because one among us is the Christ, and there's only one of us in the room. Let us be the mirrors that inspire and reflect the good back to the world that needs to know because it's forgotten. I'm going to read a poem that came across my desk. I was doing study to see what I had in the coffers, and a poem written by the architect of our building, Frank Birdsong, who is here today. I never read the poem before. I'd never heard it. I don't know how it got into my desk. Frank Birdsong, the Christ, went, Richard needs to read this. And I reached out for permission. I'm not sure he even remembered writing the poem. Did you?
We did it for a choir.
Was it for a choir? Yeah. All right. Well, it's beautiful. And let it be the great remembrance that happens for us today. From the fiery furnace of the stars, we were born, and flung by God's breath to fill every corner of the vast universe. There, the stardust that we once were cooled and condensed to form all the things of creation that we know and we love. The song of a bird on a warm spring day, the plaintive cry of a wolf hurled against a cold Arctic night, and the smile of a baby snuggled safe and secure in its mother's arms. Although we each are separate and unique expressions of that Creator, we know that we all are connected through the matrix of energy that surrounds and enfolds us. I want you to tangibly feel that matrix, that energy. Be conscious about it. That's what the Christ does. That's what the Buddha does. That's what the light does. And like the glittering dewdrops that are connected by the silky web of a small gray spider. You see, he's not just talking about babies held in a mother's arms. He's talking about mosquitoes and spiders. Those that maybe have been pushed to the sides of not pretty. Spiders are not pretty. I think spiders are beautiful, and what they create is beautiful. The gray spider busily spinning in the early morning sunlight. We are formed and then torn apart by the wind, and then formed again. We exist, and then we do not. We are, and then we are not. But always we are connected by the web of love that flows in, around, and through us, and is the source of all things. And we are fused eternally and inseparably into oneness. A oneness that states elegantly and simply, please repeat after me, God is. I am. You are. We are. We all are one. I want to bring Judy in, who wrote the song. Those were lyrics from Judy's song, and rest her soul. Say it again. God is. I am. You are. We are. We all are one. Do you know we're made up of 99% star stuff? That's what scientists say. We just call it God stuff in unity. And as I prepared for this service today and reflected about all the people that have come and gone from Unity North and been here as a part of this great tapestry, this great spider web with the good and the not so good, I reflected on the story of the monastery. It was not too long ago we were that monastery. I don't know how many years, it doesn't really matter now, but I know that story was our story. We had forgotten that we belonged to each other, and we began to draw lines in the sand, us and them, you and me. And the monastery, that is Unity North, began to fall apart, and it got really close to no longer being here. And then what we did is we read poems and sang songs like what Frank Birdsong wrote. And we got right with the consciousness of a chaplain that says, no matter how dark it gets, we belong to each other. I will be the open-minded optimist holding that umbrella when my hand is tired, and my arm is tired, and my soul is tired, and my heart is tired, because that's what I'm called to do as the Christ, as the Buddha. And people ask me all the time, how did you do that? I didn't do it. I was one cell within the Christ mind. And I would love to say, oh, we got a big investment. That was an effect of a greater cause. Or that people began to come back. That was an effect of a greater cause. It was those that got on their knees and remembered the truth that no matter how much I'm frustrated by your behavior, we belong to each other. No matter how angry I was at you, or how much I hurt and I felt hurt by you, we got on our knees and said, there is only one of us here. And there will only be one of us here. And then the great resurrection of Unity North began to happen. And we are as healthy and vibrant and full of life and joy and possibility as we have ever been. And I want to thank the author of that poem who never wavered in his commitment when things were falling apart. to the oneness of this community that he held so dearly. So will you please thank for the beautiful poem and the consciousness Frank Bird sung. Let us be among the ranks of those that seek what unites us. We're entering a political arena here again. Here it comes, folks. Let us be among the ranks of the people who seek what unites us and not that which divides us. Let us be the ones that dig, no matter how deep we have to dig, to find love, to find oneness, to make a commitment, to not waver in our commitment, to see and to hear and to feel and to know the Christ in the chair to your left, even though they vote for somebody else, even though you don't agree with them and they don't agree with you. If we let the disagreement define us, we will not be here 10 years from now. But if we let the love and the oneness define us, this place will have 4 services that are this full. Yes? Let's be among those people that know oneness, that claim oneness, and nurtures that which unites. I shared a country song last week, and you seemed to like it, so I went back to country music. And I invite you to hold this scripture in your heart. Just put the scripture up there from Matthew 25. Let's read it together. Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. I want you to bring them close as I sing this song by Colin Ray. He came to town on an old freight train and jumped off in the pouring rain. Everybody said that he's insane, just a low-down, no-account hobo. He made his bed 'neath the county bridge. The city folks said, hey, that's not his. They signed a petition that they're gonna get rid of that low-down, no-account white trash. What if Jesus comes back like that on an old freight train in a hobo hat? Will we let him in or turn our backs? What if Jesus comes back like that? Oh, what if Jesus comes back like that? I want you to sing those 2 lines with me. What if Jesus comes back like that? Oh, what if Jesus comes back like that? What if Jesus comes back like that? Oh, what if Jesus comes back like that? People are going to show up and they're going to make you go, oh. Together, what if Jesus comes back like that? Oh, what if Jesus comes back like that? She was born into drug abuse. She couldn't help what her mama used. It wasn't like she got to choose. Now she's laying there all alone. She's got a monkey on her back. The nurses never saw a smile like that. The doctor says she might have a chance if somebody takes her home. What if Jesus comes back like that? 2 months early, hooked on crack. Will we let him in or turn our backs? What if Jesus comes back like that? Everybody, oh, what if Jesus comes back like that? What if Jesus comes back like that? Oh, what if Jesus comes back like that? I guarantee you someone's going to show up in your life that's going to make you go, oh. And I want you to think of that scripture. What if Jesus comes back like that? Will he cry when he sees where our hearts are at? Will he let us in or turn his back? What if Jesus comes back like that? Oh, what if Jesus comes back like that? What if Jesus comes back in one of 300 cars in our parking lot, humbling themselves to say, I'm embarrassed, but I need help. I cannot feed my family. What if Jesus comes back like the member of the LGBTQ community that says, I have been turned away from this church and this family and this organization? What if Jesus comes back like that? Will we open our hearts? Will we fly? Will we be open-minded, open-hearted? What if Jesus comes back as somebody who has done something in their past that was horrible and awful. What if Jesus comes back like that? There's only one of us here, folks. And Jesus is never left. Jesus never left. Buddha never left. The Christ has always been here. The Buddha has always been here. And it has a multitude of disguises. And our job is to look beneath the surface, because Jesus and Buddha and Krishna and Muhammad have all come back. And they're looking you in the eye, and they're looking at you in the mirror. We are called to be the open-minded Pollyanna optimists. Let them call you what they want. My attitude has changed my world, and it's changed my family. It's changed this church. The attitude of people like Frank Birdsong changed this church. The attitude of those who stood in the fire and refused to look at the ugliness when that's all somebody could see. And we called for a pattern interrupt and say, let's find the good, let's see the good when nobody else can find it. I'm going to give you a final story. I'll invite the band to come back up. And Brian, if you could play a little music behind this story. I'm going to ask the consciousness that is our chaplain corps to hand out, just a takeaway from our series here. A final story. The lecture had ended, and the class was done, when a voice from the back of the lecture hall called out, "Dr. Papaderos, what is the meaning of life?" And the usual laughter followed, and people stirred to leave and to go. But the teacher held up his hand, and he stilled the room. And he said, "No, I will answer your question." And taking his wallet out of his hip pocket, he fished out a very small, round mirror, about the size of a quarter. And he began, "When I was a small child, during the war, we were very poor. And we lived in a remote village. And one day, I found the broken pieces of a mirror. A German motorcycle had been wrecked in that place. I tried to find all the pieces and put them together. That's what we're trying to do. But it wasn't possible. So I kept only the largest piece, this one right here. And by scratching it over and over and over on a stone, I made it round. Sometimes the journey of oneness and love means working the system and scratching and getting beneath the surface." He continued, "I began to play with this as a toy, and I became fascinated that I could reflect the light. I could catch the light of the sun just right and reflect it into the dark places where the sun would never shine, in deep holes, in crevices, in dark closets. As I became a man, I grew to understand that this was not just a child's game, but a metaphor for what I might do with my life. I came to understand that I am not the light or the source of the light, but light and truth and understanding and knowledge is there. And it will shine in many dark places only if I reflect it." I invite you to read the last part of this reading by Robert Fulghum together. "I am a fragment of a mirror whose whole design and shape I do not know. Nevertheless, with what I have, I can reflect light into the dark places of this world, into the dark places in the hearts of others. This is the meaning of life. Listeners, lovers, lighthouses, mystics, mavericks and misfits, nuisances, negativity, narcissists, open-minded optimists, say with me, I am them. I am all of them. I invite you to take this mirror and to not take it lightly, but to put it somewhere as a remembrance of this series. We started with the mirror image, and we're coming back to the mirror image. And as we go into meditation, I'm going to invite you. This is the weekend, I believe, or the week, 60 years it's been since there was a march on Washington, where somebody had the courage to lead 1 million people to say, change is going to come. Change needs to come. And I'm going to have the guts and the courage to simply shine a light on it. He didn't fight. He didn't attack. He simply took a mirror and shined a light on the darkness, and change began to happen. This is what Dr. Martin Luther King said. His suggestion about what to say at his funeral. Tell them not to mention that I have a Nobel Peace Prize. That isn't important. Tell them not to mention where I went to school. I'd like somebody to mention that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to give his life serving others. I'd like for somebody to say that day that Martin Luther King Jr. tried to love somebody. I want you to be able to say that day that I did try to feed the hungry. I want you to be able to say that day that I did try in my life to clothe the naked. Thank God for Family Promise. I want you to say on that day that I did try in my life to visit those who were in prison. And I want you to say that I tried to love and serve humanity. You want to learn about yourself, study your relationships, and learn how to love more deeply, more readily, more regularly, more purposefully.